Hi there. A friend of mine, I don't know if you are familiar with The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe. Probably you are, but a friend of mine this week just reminded me of how our current weather situation reminds her of when the spell over winter is broken and we finally have spring. Do you feel like spring is actually coming, perhaps? I'm looking out my window and it's actually really sunny and um, the temperature's a little warmer. I don't think that it's really shorts weather, but my boys disagree with me. Um, Two of the three of them, the two that I don't control their wardrobe as much, went out the door with shorts on today. Hope they're staying warm. Anyway, me and my sweater and extra layers because I get cold too easily. But anyway, okay, hey, let's look at what we're doing this week. We are wrapping up Unit 5, and just to kind of, I like at this point in the course to kind of give us a little bit of a bird's eye perspective on where we're going as well. So I'll talk about the wiki here in a second, but I want to jump ahead and show you where we're headed and how closely this class is coming to a close, just so you can kind of manage your workload, which ironically is the next unit about workload management, classroom management. We have a lot of ideals as writing teachers about how often we want to do feedback and how we want to make our classrooms happen, but the reality is that we have to manage it and we have to, there's only 24 hours in our day. We don't get more once we graduate. So, in fact, I just had an interaction today with an English teacher, and she just said, "Oh, she's trying to grade senior projects. She's trying to get seniors to work independently, and they should be able to work independently." She has this great online lesson planned to blend her classroom. She's done all the right things. By all appearances, and they're not doing what she wants them to do. So there are definitely roadblocks as we're gonna plan for the best, but we also know that we're gonna have to troubleshoot. There's things we're going to have to stop and reevaluate, things that we thought would be watertight with our planning. But anyway, this is going to be the classroom management unit. There's going to be two installments to the wiki. One is a blog that's going to go into the wiki, and one is the actual wiki. This wiki for Unit 6 is a little bit lighter. It's just going to be creating a monthly plan so you can get the whole vision of what you want your classroom to look like. And then we move into Unit 7, and if you see below Unit 7, it just says course wrap up. So Unit 6 and 7 are our final units, and I know that we've got some Easter break between Unit 6 and 7 as well. For Unit 7, our only addition to the wiki is going to be to go and look at other people's wikis. So, what we're going to have to do in that week is create a wiki space that is, and I'll create it for you, that is actually just kind of a shared experience where you can maybe transfer some of your ideas out and publish them out to other people, because right now they're kind of private. And so we're really wrapping up the wiki in Unit 6, and then in Unit 7 we're just editing it and making additions and deletions and that kind of thing. So we are, and you notice that the reading load gets considerably lighter in Unit 7 as well. So we are winding down in a way. Don't wind down too quickly here on me, but just wanted to give you the big picture view. You have a lot of your wiki done at this point. And if you're falling behind and you don't have a lot of your, if you have a few missing pieces, this is the time to get caught up because it is going to end quickly. Okay, for this week, our focus, keeping the focus again on the whole idea of teaching writing and designing our writing workshops. I'm going to try to do my very best to explain what I'm after here in this Times Wiki because sometimes there's a little disconnect with this particular part, and this is probably the part that people have to do the most editing on for their final draft. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take the four writing tests you've been building on. Let's not change them at this point, okay? Let's review the Common Core standards. Make sure that there is a definite way that you're teaching out. If you're saying I'm covering this standard, then you need to be able to connect how you're covering it for mastery. If you're only doing part of the standard, that's okay. Like you could say part A or parts D and F or something like that. But do you have a lineup? And in the process of doing that, we're not just trying to match standards. We are trying to make sure that we are intentionally teaching out the skills students need to have to cover those standards. So if we look at this, we're going to begin with the end in mind. I'm a UBD trained person. You probably have heard of that. So we start with the standard, but I never could quite grasp it. It never all came together perfectly formulaically for me with UBD, because I feel like my whole writing process is a little less structured than, or a little less structured, not is not the word. It's not step here, step here, step here. I tend to go a lot back and forth. So don't feel like you've done something wrong if you find yourself going back and redoing some things and tweaking things. I think that's just part of different people's writing processes. Anyway, what I want you to do is create for each lesson, oops, that's not what I need to do, 4 mini lessons in PowerPoint, or are there some other teaching out tool? You don't have to have 4 PowerPoints. I need something that's going to be the teaching material for your mini lesson. 1 mini lesson per writing prompt or writing task. These teaching out tools can be in any format, but they should be in student language. It's not directions for the teacher, it's directions for the student. And you need to show how these lessons are going to fit the task. So you might start with, okay, today we're going to learn about capitalization and punctuation, but how is it going to fit the objective of revising and editing that you have for this lesson? In other words, this mini lesson may not cover everything that you need covered for the writing task, but it's going to break out one of the items you're trying to master through that task. It can be introducing the writing task. It can be any part of the process. I'd encourage you to mix it up a little and not always create PowerPoints for just the beginning task, but you can. I'm not going to ding you for that. I'm just going to encourage you to kind of spread it out a little bit. They don't have to be PowerPoints, but again, if they are, let's not have them be PowerPoints where you're lecturing off of them. Yes, the mini lessons are more teacher directed, as Atwell says, but how are you going to encourage interaction from students and even student-led experiences within the mini lesson? And nobody likes reading off of slides. I mean, I'm sure you don't love it when I'm reading off of this page here too, even now. So what's happening with these teaching out tools? It can be a video. You could create a video. You could find videos that are instructional that would help teach something. It can be, the mini lesson might be a modeling activity where you are going to show them, but I want a structure of that. I don't want you just to tell me, I'm going to model for my mini lesson. I want you to show me the stuff you're going to use to get that done. It could even be a worksheet that you're all going through together. You can go old school on it a little bit. It could be an interactive website. It could be a web quest. But what's going to be the part where you're teaching out? Then what tools are students going to need? And this will overlap perhaps a bit. When I'm thinking mini lessons, I'm thinking of the instructional part. Now, within that instruction, the different stations students go to, the different things they're going to need independently, the differentiation, the tiered instruction, the scaffolding that you're going to build in. We're now going to create the tools. Again, you don't have to create everything from scratch, but you do need some sort of specific material. Don't just tell me I'm going to send student to websites. Give me the links. Don't just, if you don't have, I think that I'm not getting ahead of myself. No, if you've not yet created the rubrics, did we do that already? I haven't graded. Okay, you did the rubrics last time, so you might need, if there's any other sort of guideline you need, if you need more sample writings, just different forms that students might fill out. Like last week we worked on this a little bit with our reflection tool and our peer editing tool and our rubric, but what else might students need? Maybe some of you want to bring in some of your, maybe you've already done this a little bit if you created an interactive rubric, but worksheets, guiding spaces. I keep thinking of things like Read, Write, Think Interactive. What other tools might you draw in for students to use? Okay, and then finally, include a brief description of what, editing error, what the classroom process, writing process will look like for each of the 4 writing tests. So maybe a little bit of an outline. of how it's all going to fit together. And you don't have to treat these as three separate columns. You certainly can, but perhaps the outline will have all of these things linked and embedded in them, and that's fine too. Um, there's more than one way to organize this phase, but this is really the teaching out. And you might want to look back at your previous wiki and see, okay, am I building, or is this going to look like six different things? Because we want it to flow. If you're thinking of this as the wiki is, remember, building a writer's guide or teacher's guide for teaching writing. So we're just layering and creating this week and building in depth, and then describing how it's all used and put together, if that makes sense. So, and we wonder why people get confused on this one, because I'm crazy, sorry, about all the detail there, but hopefully that helps you. I know there are tons of resources in this quarter, the Writing Fix, NWP, K-12 Reader, all of these and more are in your class this week. Just want you to think about actually teaching this out and what it will look like. What will you need? If you want them at stations, what are they doing at the station? What will they need to make that station effective? What are they going to have modeled to them? What are they going to have to be taught, both standards wise and even just like in order for them, like I said with my teacher illustration at the beginning, I actually kind of gently mentioned to her that probably this changed way of doing class is throwing them, because it's not something they're used to. They're not used to having to lead their own learning, and they kind of shut down because maybe they don't know what to do. And a part of it could be a lack of personal interest in it, because this particular group she was trying to work with was actually seniors. But I think that a lot of it can be, we need to build in some training on how we want students working to look, as well as how it's going to look. A lot of you have been talking about your role in, since last week was all about feedback and assessment, and we've talked a lot about authentic tasks. One thing I just want to challenge you with as you build, obviously we have these 4 writing tasks, but within them are so many different tasks. How can you help students be the designers of their own learning? How can you help them to identify what the problem is that they're trying to solve through their writing? How can you continue to make every part of their learning authentic? Think about the obvious questions of how is this really going to impact them in their life, in their jobs, in their relationships, and what can you teach them how to do effectively in the writing process that could be a transfer skill. And maybe how are you going to teach out how these skills matter in the real world? I hate that real world comment, because their real world is their classroom, but in their future. What projects could you build into the writing process to appeal to different types of learners, and to maybe put the process above the grade? That their writing process actually maybe trumps a letter grade on a paper. How can you make sure that as you are assigning grades to different activities, that you are emphasizing grading learning and success, and showing a learner how they've grown, versus compliance to a way you wanted a task done? How are you going to know what students need next, and how might you build in tools along the way, maybe surveys or kind of choose your own adventure type models? If you did this well, then go to this station, that kind of thing. How can you help maybe create a playlist for your classroom on what they need to, what are their options as learners, and how can you create choices? These are lots of questions. I don't expect you to answer them all throughout your process, but I do want you to consider them as you teach writing. Just one closing anecdotal thought is that I think a lot of writers get discouraged along the process, and I want to encourage you that writing can also be a celebration with students. Even watching my own son, I'm going to use a son illustration. He got to choose from a list of types of topics. He had a specific rubric, and he is much more auditory and much more verbal than he is good with using a pencil or even typing. I did his typing for him, and I typed it exactly how he spoke it. And he explained this week for his writing assignment how to swing a bat. and to hear the fun language come out of his mouth. It was really an exciting time for me as a teacher. Remember that there's some things that are happening in your students' writing you won't get to witness, but I ask you to just kind of embrace the differences in students and enjoy teaching those differences this week.